today. We're in a series, and we're third weekend. It's called New, which is appropriate because it's a new year, right? So a new year is a great time to start thinking new, to start thinking about new things, to think about new goals. What do you want to do with your family? What are the new things you're going to do? Fitness, career, all these things. Start to think new, goal set, go for it, vision. Today we're talking about new vision. All right, we're talking about new vision, and we've kind of built this whole series around this verse, 2 Corinthians 5:17. It says this. It says, therefore, I think the first word's therefore, 2 Corinthians 5:17. Oh no, that was a different translation. This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, and a new life has begun. Anyone who belongs to Christ is a new person. The old life is gone. A new life has begun. So in other words, you could be 20 years old, 30 years old, 50 years old, 90 years old. And if you come into a relationship with Jesus, you belong to Christ, you've got a new start. You've got a fresh life. And although all of your problems don't necessarily go away, what you have is you have God now involved in your life, helping you to navigate through your problems. You have the Holy Spirit living inside of you who helps to guide you and lead you. Doesn't mean everything's perfect. Doesn't mean you never struggle or have challenges. But what you have is a new life, a new vision, a new direction, a new purpose. Okay? So that's what we're talking about. And we are... We're in the book of Nehemiah, all right? So go ahead and turn with me your Bibles if you have them. Nehemiah is a tough book to find. It's buried in the Old Testament. So start in the middle and go left, or you can even get smarter than that. You can go to the table of contents at the beginning of your Bible and just find Nehemiah. It'll tell you what page. Or if you have a smartphone, you can get the Bible app, which is free, by the way. It doesn't cost you anything. It has all the versions of the Bible. You can just type Nehemiah in. It'll take you right there. Or if you want to just be totally lazy, we're going to have it up on the screen. All right? Before I jump into this, I do want to say one more thing. We want to make service interactive, okay? I know I do kind of like most of the talking, and yet you may be out there and you may have thoughts or questions or things that you want to add or, things that you'd like to inquire about. Two ways you can do that. You can do it right now if you wanted to. One is through our Twitter page, and our Twitter handle is OneChurchCBus. And you'll see that actually up on the screen here at different times. And let's say you have a question. You hear something, you're like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. You can go ahead and direct message to us through that route. And once we see that, we will, at our first possible convenience, we'll get back to you and help to process those questions or thoughts with you. And you could do that on Facebook as well. We have a Facebook page. You could send a message and ask a question. The other thing you can do is as you hear a point or something that just speaks to your heart, you can put that online. So you could tweet it or you could put it on your Facebook. And we are starting to get some incredible feedback from people who don't go to our church, some who don't even live within driving distance of our church, who will see somebody's message, some quote, some phrase, and it speaks to them. So they'll go, when you link it back to the church, then they'll go and they'll see it. Many times they'll go listen to the whole message. I got a message from a guy not long ago who was at the worst point in his life, saw somebody's thing, went, listened to it. What a beautiful day and age we live in that we can leverage these things. So you can make yourself part of the program, be interactive by doing this. And if you're like, man, it would just be a distraction in service, maybe write the thought down, and then after you leave and go home, you could put it out later that day. So anyway, wanted to just kind of make you aware of that. We are in the book of Nehemiah, and let me tell you a little bit what's going on here. This is at a point in the nation of Israel. The book of Nehemiah is it's about 2,500 years ago. So we're looking at it was about 444, 445 BC, before Christ. And Nehemiah is a Jew. He's part of the nation of Israel. And what happened, the place that the nation of Israel was in their nation's history, is they had a civil war and a split, basically. The nation had been divided into northern and southern kingdom. They had their own kings, their own governing. They were governed independently. And then as they were split, then both of those nations were overtaken by outside forces, okay? Northern kingdom was taken over by the Assyrians. Southern kingdom was taken over by the Babylonians and then the Persians. So for 140 years, at the time of this writing, the southern kingdom had been taken over. Now let me explain what exactly had happened. The Babylonians went into the southern kingdom and destroyed it. Okay, they tore down the walls and the gates of the city. If you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, or you've seen some of these older movies where you see kind of this archaic, ancient form of a city, you saw big walls and big gates. That is what happened. That's what the way these cities were fortified, and they protected themselves with these walls. So the armies would use the wall to give them an advantage from being attacked. So when the Babylonians came in and destroyed the walls, not only did they tear down their structures, they stripped them of their security, and the whole nation was vulnerable. Then what they did was they exiled the people. They killed some of them they sent away to other nations and scattered the people abroad. And so they only left a remnant of people. There was just a few people who were still there, who literally were there looking at a nation that had been decimated, okay? So picture, to put it in modern day terms, picture New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. You remember seeing pictures of that? Everything was flattened. People were in tears. People's homes destroyed. People feeling helpless, okay? That's what happened to the nation. 140 years, right? In our country, FEMA wasn't there the next day and everybody was upset. Imagine 140 years of a destructed place. So here they are, they're upset, and now Nehemiah is actually working for the king. He's the cupbearer to the king. He had a really cushy job. He got to sip the king's wine before the king did. That was his only job, to make sure that the king didn't get poisoned. And so he's living in the palace. He had a very comfortable lifestyle, and yet one day in chapter 1 receives visitors, some friends and family that come and tell him, hey, let me tell you about what's going on in Israel. It's still destroyed. You should see it now. It's so bad. They painted a verbal picture for him that caused him to go into so much anguish. The Bible said he went into mourning. He was mourning as if his nation had completely died. But the amazing thing about Nehemiah was what he did after his mourning. The Bible says he mourned, he fasted, he prayed, and he made a decision that he was going to do something positive with his pain. And what you do with your pain is a game changer. You can either allow your pain to take you down, or you can give your pain to God, and he'll take your pain and give you a vision. That's what happened to Nehemiah. He took his pain, he gave his pain to God, and God gave him a vision. So then Nehemiah began to pray to God, and he said, Lord, please give me favor with this king. Even though he's a foreign king, even though he has no personal interest in the state of our nation, would you please give me favor? And God granted him that. He had a conversation with the king, and the king said, how can I help you? He said, man, I need supplies. I need protection. Can you give me all this? And the king began to he just basically wrote him a blank check, said, go do this. And the Lord granted him favor with the king. So Nehemiah, who really was completely unfit for this job, okay, he's a cupbearer to the king, all of a sudden becomes a governor / building contractor, all this out of his comfort zone, and he has to travel 1,000 miles to Jerusalem. That's where we pick up. Here we go. Nehemiah chapter 2, starting in verse 11. He says this, so I arrived in Jerusalem 3 days later. I slipped out during the night, taking only a few others with me. I had not told anyone about the plans God had put in my heart for Jerusalem. Now, I want to show you kind of the whole phrase that I want to highlight and kind of build our discussion around today, and it's this right here. He says, I hadn't told anyone about the plans God had put in my heart. Nehemiah was willing to take a huge risk, to go way out of his comfort zone, to go way out of his expertise, to literally, as we'll see over the next few weeks, put his life on the line, to risk humiliation even further, and to go from a very comfortable lifestyle into something with really no guarantees of even his own personal safety. You'll see that there are people who try to kill him in this process. And the only reason he was willing to do that was because of this phrase right here: plans that God put into his heart. What we see here is a picture of the vision, of a God-given vision for Nehemiah. Do you know that God has a specific purpose for your life? A plan? He put you on this earth not just to eat up a bunch of food, have a bunch of kids, buy some stuff, work a job, spend some time, and then die. There is a purpose. Like, there is a plan that God will put in your heart if you submit to him, if you ask him. In fact, in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5, it says this. It says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. This is God speaking to Jeremiah. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as a prophet to the nations. He's telling Jeremiah, look, before you even were born, when you were still being formed in your mother's womb, I had a plan and a purpose. I appointed you. I gave a vision. There's a vision that I have for your life. And what's true of Jeremiah and what's true of Nehemiah is true for you and I. I just made that up. I swear I didn't even rehearse that. It's true that God has that purpose. God has that plan for you and for me. So I want to talk today about the God-given vision for your life. Now here's a little phrase. At first it's going to be confusing. I'm going to unpack it a little bit, all right? And this is the phrase. If your vision is your vision, then the best you can do is the best you can do. If your vision for your life, and we all have a vision. We all have a vision. Whether you've sat down and articulated it intentionally and sat down and wrote it out and planned it out or not, there's a vision. There's something you're running toward. There's a horizon that you're chasing. I don't know what it is. It could be something. You may not even realize it. You may not even realize what you're chasing, but you are chasing something. We're all working for something. We're all living for something. And if your vision is your vision, if it's your vision, then the best you can do is the best you can do. And what I'm going to challenge you to do today is to take your vision and the best you can do and to exchange it for the vision that God has for you, and then you get the blessing of having the best he can do, which is a lot better than the best that you can do. How could Nehemiah, who was completely and totally incompetent for this job, be willing to pack up, move 1,000 miles away and do this when he was completely not up for the task? It's simply because he knew that it was the plan that God put in his heart. He knew that it was the plan that God put in his heart. So I ask you this question: what is the current vision that you have for your life? What is it? Okay, do you have a task in your life that you hate doing? Okay, this might be a chore, might be some kind of menial task, something around the house. Maybe you're like, I hate all of them equally. I just don't like doing any chore. Okay, but maybe there's one that just sticks out, that when that one comes up, you're like, no, right? Maybe it's the dishes. All right, maybe it's laundry. I'm talking about the thing you just procrastinate doing. You don't do it well. You hate doing it. Okay, I have one, okay, and mine is scraping my windshield, okay? I hate, okay, and I don't use the word hate on most days, but today I'm going to use the word, and I'm going to mean every letter of it. I hate scraping my windshield. Nothing worse. You get up, you got somewhere you got to be in 10 minutes, and of course you go out, or at least I go out 11 minutes early, and I walk out and my windshield is totally covered. Of course I didn't wear my gloves, probably didn't even wear a coat, but I go out there and you go and you begin to scrape. You know what I'm saying? You begin to scrape and depending on how bad it is, it's just, oh man, your hands are freezing, your nose is frozen. You know, every time, you scrape, the thing off, and it's still like, when it's really bad, you can't even get it off. It's like you need a chisel and an ice pick to try to get this off. I've got this scraper that's like a glove with a scraper on the end of it, and it's, I think I got it for like $2. It's a piece of junk. I'm over there just trying to hack away at this thing, freezing. When I was a teenager, I used to go out, I thought I was a genius. I would take a bucket of hot water, and I would get to where, and I would just, throw the hot water on there to melt the ice. And then my dad told me, hey, bonehead, you're going to crack your windshield and you're going to pay for it. So I decided not to do that anymore. But just scraping is work. Now, here's the thing. Because I hate doing this so much, I pretty much always do a terrible job of it. Okay? So, like, I don't think in the course of my whole life I've ever fully scraped all my windows. Like, I scrape just enough to be able to see where I'm going. Have you ever seen one of these people driving down the road? I've been one of those people. I am one of those people that I've been known to drive down the street like this. I mean, just barely. I mean, and literally driving by faith. I mean, at any point, I could be blindsided, by a semi-truck, but I'm like, hey, I didn't scrape well, so I'm out like this. And then I've been known to come to a stop sign and literally have to open the door and get out and look around to see if there are cars coming, if it's safe for me to get back in and drive. Now, how many of you know that just as a general rule, if you're operating a motor vehicle, it's generally a good idea to have good visibility out of the windshield? I mean, how many of you know that to be the case? Your life experience has proven that it's pretty good idea to be able to see out of the windshield, and that is important. In fact, think of your life as a car and you're driving towards something. In fact, look at this picture. This picture represents your life, and you're moving towards something. Like there's this horizon out there, and that horizon is the vision that God has for your life. God's called you to drive towards something, to take everything you have, your energy, your effort, your intellect, all of the resources around you, your relationships, and to use them for His glory, okay? So let's pretend like that horizon is that thing. You look at this, you have a clear windshield. As you look at this, how does this strike you? Like maybe you're here and you're like, this picture kind of relates to me because you can't really see what's out there, When you look out there, I mean, I can kind of see some mountains on the horizon, but you can't really see them really well, and it's hard to see how big they are because they're so far away. There's a lot of ambiguity in this picture. Maybe you're here and you say, honestly, my vision for my life, I don't really know. I don't know what God has for me to do. I feel like I'm working hard. I feel like I'm driving fast. I feel like I'm going somewhere. I'm just not sure where. Maybe that's you. Or maybe you're like me and you believe you know where God's called you to go. You've got a vision. It's clear. You can't really see it. It's a long way off, and you're working hard to get towards it. And at times, it just feels so far away, you're like, I think I might run out of gas. I feel like I don't know if I have what it takes to actually make it all the way to these mountains. Like, I know where I'm going. I just don't know if I've got it in me to get there. I know Nehemiah felt this way. Nehemiah's like, oh my goodness, I know what God's called me to do. I know the vision that God has for me. But as I go toward it, I'm not sure if I can actually make it. There's a lot of road ahead of me. And when you have a lot of road ahead of you, it can be very overwhelming. Very overwhelming. Now, something I want to draw attention to in this picture. Maybe you've noticed it, maybe you haven't, but in this picture, when you look, there's something right here, and it's the rear view mirror. And one of the biggest obstacles to the vision that God has for you is your rear view mirror. In fact, many people, their vision for their life is all centered around what not to be instead of what to be. They spend all their time and all their effort and all their energy trying really hard to not be something. Their whole vision, hey, I'm going to not be the dad that I had. I'm going to not be the person that he or she was. I'm going to not be that. And their whole vision is what not to be instead of what to be. I'm going to borrow a little phrase from our good friend William Shakespeare. To be or not to be, that's the question. What to be or what not to be, that is the question. And don't fall into this trap of spending all your life, your whole focus, your whole vision of what not to be. Like when I come over to your house and I sit at your fireplace and I see the head mounted on there and it's a buck or a bear or whatever it is, the thing that you shot. Don't tell me the stories about the ones you didn't shoot. Tell me about the one you shot. I want to know about that thing. I want to know what you went after. I want to know the mountain that God's called you to climb, the hill that you're called to take, not the thing that you're trying not to take. So be careful that you don't fall, especially if your rearview mirror has some pain in it, or if your rearview mirror has some dysfunction in it. It has some things that you really don't want to be. I've seen this many times. When I was a youth pastor, there was a kid in our church. Listen, 16 years old. 16-year-old kid came from a horribly dysfunctional family. And this 16-year-old looked me in my eye and said, I don't want to have any kids. I said, what? He told me straight up. He goes, I don't want to be a father. I know for sure that I don't ever want to have kids. I said, why? Why would you make that decision at 16? He said, because my dad was so terrible and he hurt me so bad. He goes, my worst nightmare would be to be responsible for doing that to someone else. 16-year-old kid, his whole vision was what not to be instead of what God called him to be. Maybe you're here and that's your story and you say, man, I've got some things and I've got some real clear what not to be's in my life. I have some experiences I don't want to reproduce. I don't want my kids to have to go through it. I don't ever want to have to go through that again. And I just want to encourage you, look, learn from that stuff, but begin to develop a vision of what to be. At the same time I was a youth pastor, I'd have these kids in our youth group who were great, incredible kids. Really good kids. I mean, heart for God, selfless individuals, responsible. You ever just meet some teenage kids, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a great kid. Whenever I would come across one of those kids, I'd be like, introduce me to your parents. I want to meet your parents. They would take me to their parents and I'd just be like, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? Explain to me. What songs did you play next to their crib when they were babies? What'd you do? What books did you read them? I want to know what you read them. How did you teach them how to handle money? How much money did you give them for allowance? How much accountability was there? What'd you do? What was their curfew? What was the conversation? Tell me about your conversation. I mean, I pester these people. I'm a huge pest. I just ask them all kinds of questions because I, as a parent, want to have a vision of what to be, not a vision of what not just a vision of what not to be. Now hear me. There's some things that we have to be careful we don't reproduce, okay? But think about this. The rear view mirror is meant to be glanced in, not to be stared in, okay? We learn from our past. We don't live in our past. You learn from it. You don't live in it. So you glance in it. I glance in it to remember what not to be. I glance in it to remember where I came from. I glance in it to make sure that I don't repeat the mistakes that I've seen. But I don't spend my whole life staring in the rearview mirror. I pray to God, Lord, give me a vision for the windshield. Show me where you want me to go. God, who do you want me to be? What do you want me to accomplish? What do you want me to stand for and not just stand against? Vision of what to be and not just what not to be. This comes up in all kinds of ways. We started our Connect group this week on Thursday night, and we had a great time. Our first communication in our Connect group was all about just everybody shared their story of where they grew up, and our group is all couples, and so they shared how they met. One of the guys in our group has an incredible story. It was just inspired me so much. His story is he grew up in extreme poverty. He said, man, when I grew up, we were so poor, we had like a bunch of people living in a one-bedroom apartment. He had his mom, his grandma, siblings, all these people living in one bedroom. He said, we were so poor. He goes, most meals, I didn't even get to have a whole sandwich. They would give me like half of a sandwich to eat growing up in this. And so he chose to take that environment and let it motivate him instead of cause him to spiral. So he became the valedictorian of his class and earned an academic and football scholarship to go to college. And then he was a high achiever there. Now, he said this. He goes, as a kid, I lived in this poverty, and it hurt. He goes, I wore clothes to school I was embarrassed of. I didn't get to eat very much. I had all this. And he goes, at that time, my vision for my life was, I don't care what I do for a living. I just want to make a bunch of money. So he goes, I started to look around at professions that people were driving nice cars and making a lot of money. And I was like, I think I'll do that one. He goes, I didn't really know if I would even like doing it. I just knew that those guys drove nice cars, and so I chose that job. Went to school, very intelligent, excelled, gets out in this job and finds out within months that he hates it. He's like, I didn't like it. I was miserable every single day because I didn't like this job. It was a grind. It wasn't anything I was passionate about. I was just on a hamster wheel, but I was making a lot of money. And all of a sudden he realized that his vision for his whole life was linked to what not to be. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to be hungry. And I don't want my kids and my wife to go through that. So I'm going to do this. And so his whole vision was what not to be. It took him months within that job to realize that he had the wrong vision. Went backed up, punted, and changed jobs, changed careers, and is now doing the thing that he loves doing, the thing that God's called him to do. His whole vision has changed and shifted from what not to be to what to be. People that have a vision of what not to be, you start to hear them say things like, I'm going to give my kid everything I never had. You hear that? That's you got to be real careful with that. I'm going to give my kids everything I never had. Usually it's talking about material possessions. It's usually somebody that came out of poverty, was embarrassed of their clothes or whatever. So I'm going to give my kid everything. And what they do is they give their kid all this stuff that they never had, but they don't give them the important stuff like a work ethic and character and teaching the kid how to work hard. In fact, Ecclesiastes talks about this. I think it's chapter 2 in Ecclesiastes 2:21. It says, some people work wisely with knowledge and skill, then must leave the fruit of their efforts to someone who has not worked for it. How many times have you ever seen this happen? Daddy pulled himself up by his bootstraps. He worked hard. He didn't have things. He worked really hard, and he looked and goes, well, man, I know that shame and embarrassment and everything, so I'm going to give my kid stuff. And the kid becomes very entitled. They think money grows on trees. They don't have a value for a dollar, and the parent wasn't intentional. They spent the whole life trying to not be something. A vision of what not to be instead of a vision of what do I really want to give my kids? What do my kids really need? I don't want to give them everything they want. I want to give them what they need. What do they need? Begin to have those conversations. Ask the Lord, what do my kids need? How do I do this? And it's a whole shift in vision. Be careful. Look, if you've come out of a dysfunctional relationship, you come through a divorce, and you're going on your second marriage, or you're going and came through a relationship that didn't end well, and you're going into a new one. Be careful that your vision for your new marriage or your new relationship isn't a vision of what not to be. Because if you're not careful, you will take the baggage from that and you will then superimpose that into your new relationship, and it begins to weigh it down, and everything goes to the comparison of the past relationship instead of getting with this new person and going, okay, God, what do you have for us? What do you want us to accomplish? What do you want us to do? It's the difference between a vision of what not to be and a vision of what to be. Look, don't live in your past. Don't stare in the rearview mirror. Have you ever been driving down the road and you drove past something and you're like, what was that? And you look in your rearview mirror and you drive maybe for a little while staring in the rearview mirror? Very unsettling, isn't it? Even as you're driving, you're kind of looking like maybe you drive past an accident. Have you ever driven past an accident and you looked at it so much you almost got in an accident yourself? You're driving like this and you kind of got your foot on the brake and you're kind of looking back and you're looking at this rearview mirror and you almost rear end the guy in front of you, or you're drifting into the other lane, or you keep having to kind of pump the brake. That's no way to live. That's not how you get to your vision. Your vision happens when you glance in the mirror, but you stare at the vision, the horizon that God has for you. Listen, God wants to give you a vision for your life. And if your vision is your vision, then the best you can do is going to be the best you can do. God's got something better. He's got something better. Seek him for that. Ask him, Lord, what do you have for me? What is the thing that you have for me? I want my life to count. I want to look back on my deathbed, to look over and have no regrets that I went for it. Even the areas that I wasn't adequate, or the areas I failed or didn't work out like I wanted it to. it happened because I was trying to go for the vision that God had for my life. Let me just share with you some vision that I've heard recently. There's a man who was a nightclub promoter. And his whole life was promoting, these parties, these events. He'd have all these celebrities. And the dude was the life of the party. When you hear him talk, you can tell he's just a cool guy. He said, without really thinking it out, his vision really was to just become very wealthy, connected, popular, make a bunch of money. He said his whole mindset was, what's the newest Rolex I can get? What's the nicest car I can get? He just wanted to kind of show off, to show the world how great he was. And one day God got a hold of his life and just rocked him. And all of a sudden he realized that all the gifts and talents and abilities and things that God had put in him, he was wasting. It was all about him. And so he said, look, he goes, Lord, what do you have for me? And over the course of the next few weeks, he began to get a burden for people who don't have clean water. And he started to look at the statistic, and the statistics were that 30,000 people die every week from water that's not sanitary around the world. 30,000. We take it for granted so much. We buy bottles of water, and we've got drinking fountains. I mean, it's crazy, but there are people all over the world. 30,000 that die, and 90% of those are under the age of 5. Children dying. He's like, this can't happen. And so he had a vision. He said, look, I believe God is leading me to lead the charge on this thing, to get out in front of this thing. What did he know about water? Nothing. He was a club promoter. But he's like, I'm going to take my skills of promotion and sales and all this. I'm going to use it to make sure to do my best that when I die, I'm going to do everything in my power through the power of God to make sure that everyone in the world has clean drinking water. That's a vision. Kind of crazy, kind of scary. Like, how in the world? Like, almost like, dude, seriously, how are you going to do that? So far, this one man, through this effort, started a thing called Charity Water. You can actually go to charitywater.org, and so far he's raised $21.5 million for water. 21.5. He has given clean water to 409,800 people. And he's had 138,000 people involved in this project. 138,000 people, $21 million, 400,000 people, clean drinking water because of a God-given vision. He comes up with this thing. This is his plan. He goes, you know what? I know everybody's tight on money. He goes, but here's what we can do. He challenges people to give up their birthday. It's like, instead of throwing a big birthday party for yourself and everybody bring you gifts, donate your birthday to Charity Water. So what people do is they throw a birthday party and they say, don't bring me any gifts. Just bring money to donate to Charity Water. And he's had celebrities do this. He's had all kinds of people do this. And through that, he's raised the vast majority of his money. Hey, maybe you want to join him in this. Maybe this is something you want to be a part of. Maybe that's something that tugs on your heart. This is a God-given vision. Just like Nehemiah was able to go 1,000 miles and to look and say, I know this is a plan that God has put into my heart. It's a God-given vision. I heard just this week about a woman in another state who has a vision to make sure that there's not a single orphan in her state. So right now she's working on putting together a plan to kind of step it up in terms of adoption. And she's working with churches to try to find people who will open up their home, open up their life. She said, my goal in life, the vision that God's given me, the horizon that I'm driving toward, okay? The horizon that I'm driving toward is that I want every single kid in our whole state to have a mommy or daddy. Every single kid. That's a huge vision. That's not a vision defined by what not to be. That's a vision defined of what to be, of what could be. And right now, currently, they're blowing the doors down. They're placing kids in homes in solid Christian families. People that are opening their home that wouldn't otherwise, except that God put this vision in her heart and she's charging ahead. She's going for it. What's your vision? What's the vision that God's given you? I tell you, as a church, we are compelled to ignite a movement to reach a disconnected culture. I meet people all the time who have so much stuff, and on the exterior, they look so good. They look so clean. They look like they've got it all together. And yet I know, and as I talk to many of them and I meet them, people that have never come to our church, that their lives are a mess. Their emotions are messed up. They're linked to their past. They've got all kinds of chains, addictions, the pornography and the drugs and alcohol, and their marriages are in shambles. Their kids are running wild, and they've got all kinds of stuff, and they got a real good resume, but their life is a mess. And the only hope that they have is in the power of Jesus Christ. That's our vision, man. Let's not just come in here, huddle up, have a good time, sing some songs with a great band, walk out and go, that was good, what's for lunch? It's to take the power of God working inside of us and to go and to pass it on, to help to reach out. And part of what we want to do with our vision is to plant 100 churches. I want to see 100 churches. Maybe there will be more than that, but right now, short term, that's the vision. That's what we want God to do, to use us, to equip pastors, to raise up churches, and to plant churches all over the world. Who knows? Maybe your vision's linked to that. Maybe you have a business and you're like, man, what would be incredible is if God would bless my business and I would be able to put in this effort. I've got skills in the business world to be able to do it. And maybe one day your business would be able to fund the planting of a church. You say, look, we're doing so well here. I'm going to be able to take this and just through our business, boom, we're going to plant a church out of our business. I don't know what it is, but I do know this, that if you submit yourself to God, whether you're qualified, whether you're equipped, whether you're educated to do it, doesn't matter if people are behind you, cheering you on, clapping you on. When you have the sense in your heart that God's given you a vision for something bigger than yourself, and look, it might scare you. In fact, it should scare you. Think Nehemiah was scared? What? I'm going to leave the comfort of the palace to go back to put my life in danger, people trying to kill me, to go through this wilderness 1,000 miles away. I don't know where I'm going to live. He didn't even have a house. If your vision doesn't cause you to have to get on your knees and go, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing, Lord. I'm not able to do this. God, I need you to rescue me. God, I believe you've put it in my heart. I have no idea how we're going to make it happen, but Lord, I'm trusting you. If you don't have to pray about your vision, then it's probably your vision, not God's. So let's run it through this test. Look at it. What is the vision? What are you living for? What motivates you? Why do you go to work? Why do you have the conversations you have? Why do you work the way you do in your life? So we're going to talk, the vision, we're going to talk about this the next 2 weeks. I'm shutting it down for today, but the next 2 weeks we're going to talk about what it takes to accomplish a vision. There's two very key components that when God gives you a vision, he puts the vision in your heart, but you've got to make it. There's some things you've got to do. You have a part to play in this. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about what those two parts that you are called to play is.